Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Fiona Sears and I'm the Head of Examining at the Federal Office of AMEB. I am very happy to be here today to host a workshop on the new AMEB Theory Grade 4 Integrated Course and Workbook. Along with me today is the book's author, our very own theory specialist, Andrew Raiskums. Hi Andrew.
Hi Fiona, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Today Andrew will show you the new book, how it's structured and set out, and then talk in depth about some of the key content areas of the Grade 4 syllabus. We have received some questions in advance, which is great, thank you. You are also welcome to ask questions via the chat function on your screen. You'll see the little speech bubble icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. Just click on that and type a question. I'm sure you're all Zoom experts by now. I think the Q&A function is there, but we would like you to use the chat function if possible. My colleague Leah and I will monitor these questions during the workshop, and I will interrupt Andrew's presentation to ask him your questions on the relevant topics. During the workshop, we will also have some questions to ask you, the audience. We'll do this via interactive polls. I thought to demonstrate how the polls work, we try a quick test poll now so you can all give it a go. So Leah's going to put the poll question up on your screen now, and you'll soon be able to see it. And as you can see, the question is, what is Andrew's favourite interval? So this is your chance to completely guess from these answers which you think is his favourite interval. Take your pick from answers A, B, C or D, or 1, 2, 3, 4 that's listed there, and press submit once you've chosen. So if you do that now, that would be great. When we do these polls later in the presentation, there will be a PowerPoint up on the screen as well. So you may need to drag that poll box around your screen so that you can see everything. If you're doing this from your phone, I'm sorry, it might be a bit squishy. Please note that your individual responses to all of the polls that we'll do during the workshop will be completely anonymous. So maybe Leah could put the results up and we can have a look. Let's see how everybody voted. Ooh. There's a clear favourite there, Andrew. Did they get it right?
No, they didn't get it right, actually. My favourite interval is actually a minor seventh.
Okay,
so that's
so
but yeah. I will actually say, Fiona, that I love all intervals, but minor sevenths have a special place in my heart.
Well, there you go. Well, 34% of the audience were correct, so I think that's pretty good.
Well done.
Yeah. Before I hand over to Andrew to start the workshop proper, I would like to introduce our Chief Examiner of Theory, Dr. Rita Cruz, OAM, who is going to give us a short introduction. So we'll just wait for Rita to appear on our screens. Once she's given an introduction, we'll hand over to Andrew, who is going to run us through the workshop. And here she is, our Chief Examiner of Theory, Dr. Rita Cruz.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Fiona. Sorry about that little glitch. And welcome everybody from me. This is going to be a great workshop with Andrew. And I must tell you, Andrew knows a frightening amount about the intricacies of theory. And, you know, I always defer to him. Look, we're very excited to see the publication of our new Grade 4 theory book, which of course follows on from the previous 3 grades. And they've been very helpful to teachers and students. And this book is no exception. It's very well written by Andrew with clear explanations and numerous examples and exercises to take you through the 4th grade syllabus step by step. One of the most useful sections, and which I'm particularly impressed with, is the chapter number 12, which goes into minute detail about the various Baroque dances. Now, this is a topic that's not always well understood by students, particularly the notion of the character of a dance, which Andrew will explain in detail later in this webinar. You can, in fact, feel very confident that by using this book and understanding its concepts and doing all the exercises, everything that you need to know about the Grade 4 theory exam will be at your fingertips. So sit back and enjoy this session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rita. I will now hand over to Andrew, AMEB's theory specialist and author of all of our integrated courses and workbooks, to run the webinar. And I'll be in the background collecting all your questions. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Fiona. All right, well, what I intend to do today is to go right through the theory syllabus for grade 4, and I'm going to use the book as an adjunct to what I'm going to say. So I'm going to be referring a lot to the book, and I think that Leah's just put up the table of contents for you to have a look at. So I followed the syllabus pretty much in order. And so we begin with the new major and minor scales, then a lesson on double sharps and double flats, diatonic and chromatic semitones, and a bit more on the technical names of notes in the scale. Then a chapter on intervals, modulation, a chapter on time and rhythm, a refresher on 4-part writing in lesson 7, then all 4 of the principal cadences in lesson 8, longer passages of harmony, and you'll see that this chapter is necessarily a long chapter, lesson 9. Lesson 10, also a fairly long chapter on melody writing, then transposition, dances in the Baroque suite, and yes, you'll see that that is a good 10 pages worth of material there. A chapter on the stringed instruments of the symphony orchestra, then all the signs and terms that you need to know for grade 4 theory. And the book also includes a past paper, which we've called a practice exam in the book itself. So that's basically everything. And what I thought I'd do is I'd run through everything in order. So let's go ahead into the new major scales for grade 4 theory. And there are 4 of them that we need to know for grade 4 theory. And they are B major, F sharp major, D flat major, and G flat major. And yes, I've just got a page up here on the screen, just showing you how I've laid this out in the book. I've followed the same method that I've used in previous books, where we just divide the scale into a pair of tetrachords, and working sharp-wise, we go that way, working flat-wise, we go that way. And I'm aware that I'm mirrored, so I think the directions are correct. And drawing out the key signatures as well, I still find that students sometimes put the flat signs and the sharp signs in the wrong octave in key signatures. And I think it's very important for them to be able to draw the key signatures and know where the signs are supposed to go. Of course, these days, students don't necessarily have to write key signatures because they have software that does it all for them. But I think it's very important to be able to do this and know exactly where all those flats and sharps sit, particularly as the scales become more complicated in terms of the amount of flats and sharps in there. I also talk about the concept of enharmonic equivalence. So the scale, you'll see the 2 little piano diagrams here on the page. The scale of F sharp major and the scale of G flat major are on the piano exactly the same notes. And I say that those scales are enharmonic equivalents. And also talking about, say, the note E sharp in the scale of F sharp major. E sharp is the enharmonic equivalent of F, but it's important to spell that note as E sharp and not F. And I talk about that a little bit in the book as well. And just moving on to the next slide, the circle of fifths we've been developing right from the start. And so I've put in these new major scales into the circle of fifths. And I think this is a really important thing for students to understand, because it shows the progression of sharps and flats, but it also shows the progression of sharps and flats in the scales. So I think it's very important for kids to really wrap their heads around the circle of fifths and understand how everything leads. Now, we can move on to lesson 2, the new minor scales. The new minor scales in grade 4 are B minor, F sharp minor, C sharp minor, F minor, and B flat minor. So B minor and F sharp minor follow on from E minor, which was the last sharp minor scale introduced in grade 2. And then F minor and B flat minor follow on from C minor, which was introduced in grade 3. So there are 5 minor scales in grade 4 theory. What I do in this chapter is I talk more about enharmonic equivalence, because there's going to be E sharps and B sharps in these scales. And it's important, again, that students know that that's exactly how they have to spell these notes in these scales. I also talk about writing the scales with a key signature versus without a key signature. And for example, if you're writing the scale of B flat minor without a key signature, you do not need to put a natural sign in front of the A. That's only required if you're writing the scale with a key signature. It amazes me, even at grade 4 level, students still do it. They still put in a natural sign, but it's not necessary. So I just reinforce that a little bit in the chapter. But these 2 chapters of the major and minor scales, they follow on quite logically from grade 3. And I think we can move on to the next lesson now. Lesson 3 is what I'd call a bit of a catch-up lesson, where we introduce some new concepts and we just slowly start to apply them to musical examples. And so what we've got here are double sharps, double flats, diatonic and chromatic semitones, and a little bit more on the technical names of the notes in the scale. Now, a couple of teachers have asked me, why do we actually have to teach double sharps and double flats at this grade level when students don't see scales containing double sharps until grade 5? And I say that it's necessary for students to know these things because when we look at the transposition chapter, students are going to have to know how to apply double sharps and double flats to transposed melodies, because the melodies will contain passages of chromatic writing, which I'll explain in a minute. So that's why we've got double sharps and double flats here and not in the next grade. However, I actually decided to go a little bit forward just to put context around double sharps and introduce the scale of G sharp minor, which is a grade 5 scale. And G sharp minor, the sharpened leading note in G sharp minor is G double sharp. So I've just sort of given students some context and you know, looking forward, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see double sharps in scales and you're going to see double flats elsewhere in your music. And I must say, with my students, I used to get them to bring in their pieces and we would go through and we would have a look at passages that contain double sharps and double flats, and we'd talk about the keys and the key areas and things like that. Now, moving along to diatonic and chromatic semitones. Oh, sorry, Leah, we've got to go back. I haven't quite finished with lesson 3, thank you. Diatonic and chromatic semitones, I think, is actually quite an easy concept to understand. Diatonic semitones only exist in the scales and keys that we've learned so far, up to this point. So you'll see them in the scales that you've learned. Chromatic semitones exist only in chromatic scales. And I will mention that the grade 4 theory syllabus does mention chromatic scales. We've never asked any questions on chromatic scales, but nonetheless, they are mentioned. And I expect that students that have made it to grade 4, who are doing grade 4 theory, will most likely have played chromatic scales on their instruments by this stage. So they'll know what we're talking about. Chromatic semitones, it looks like something has been altered. So C to C sharp, D sharp to D double sharp, these sorts of things. The letter names will always be the same, whereas for diatonic semitones, the letter names will be different. And that's what I underline and what I've taught my students. Diatonic for different, chromatic equals the same. And just a little bit about the technical names of the scales. So in grade 3, these were introduced, you know, tonic, supertonic, median, etc. There's more questions involving these in grade 4. And I think they are a great way of getting students and teachers to learn the new scales, to ask specific questions about, okay, what is the leading note of C sharp minor? You know, B sharp, that sort of thing. So there are questions in this chapter relating to that sort of material. And if we go on to the next screenshot, here's an example of what the questions look like in this chapter. So where possible, I like to get students looking at actual music. I don't like asking them abstract questions. I like them to do a bit of analysis. And so if you see the first example on this page, it's a melody, and and it contains diatonic and chromatic semitones, and I've just asked students to work out how many diatonic semitones, how many chromatic semitones by looking at the music. And I will say that question looks straightforward, but it actually requires quite a bit of sleuthing. Anyway, so yeah, we can move along now to lesson 4, intervals. All right, now I will say that in the development of this book, all of the people proofing the book, we sort of descended into this great big, somewhat heated discussion about what intervals should actually be included in grade 4 theory. We felt that what was actually down in the syllabus was perhaps a little bit ambiguous. So up to this year, the syllabus has said recognition and writing of all diatonic intervals and their inversions. And some people said, well, does that mean above the tonic, or does it mean above any note in the scale? And we decided that it does not mean any note in the scale, because this would lead to intervals that grade 4 students wouldn't necessarily be able to name, given the resources of the grade. You know, augmented and diminished intervals are the province of grade 5 theory. So we decided to clarify this. And in this year's theory syllabus, this question is worded as the recognition and writing of all diatonic intervals above and below the tonic, and comma inversion of these intervals. So hopefully that clarifies things. I think most people assumed that that's what the syllabus was saying, but I think you'll appreciate we felt the need to clarify this, because to be honest with you, working out all the intervals above any note in the scale seems somewhat overwhelming, even to me. So anyway, let's have a look at the main sort of areas in this chapter. The first one to look at is writing intervals below the tonic note. We haven't done this yet, and I think most of you will be familiar with the usual method to do this. So if you look at the example on the screen, there's a C sharp, and write the note that is a major 6th below this note. And what you do is you subtract that the number of the interval from 9 and reverse the quality. So the note that is a major 6th below that note is the same as a minor 3rd above it. And so you do all that, and you come up with, if we go to the next screenshot, we find that that note is E. And so we put that E in. And I've just said that you can always double check if you're not sure by just imagining that the scale of E major, that's the bottom note, the major scale based on the bottom note, is happening, and you count it up and you go E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp. Yep, C sharp is absolutely a major 6th above E. And so you've just got a little technique there for double checking your work. I will say that the next sort of screenshot, if we go there, introduces, I think, the most important aspect of intervals at this grade. That is the concept of inversion. So to invert an interval, basically what you're doing is you're just taking the bottom note and flipping it up an octave above the upper note. And so in terms of the number of intervals that you have to know for grade 4 theory, there are 2 new ones that pop up at grade 4 theory that we haven't seen before. And the first of these is what happens when you invert a major second. So if we have a major second such as E flat to F, and we invert that, we end up with F to E flat, which is, ta-da, my favorite interval, a minor 7th. And if we invert a major 7th, say C to B, we end up with B to C, which is a minor 2nd. That's the other new interval we need to focus on at grade 4. And you'll see, those of you who may have seen one of our past exams will see that we generally test both of those to see if students have really gone through and studied everything in detail. Now, sometimes they'll see a question like the one that's on the screen right now. Name this interval, and you've got B to A. Now, B to A is not an interval that exists in any scale that we've learned up to this point. So what we need to do is we need to invert this to get A to B, and then we need to re-invert it to find out the name of the original interval. So if we invert the interval once, we end up with A to B, which is a major second. And then if we invert it again, again, my favorite interval, it's a minor seventh. So B to A is a minor seventh. But if you have students that are very clued in, another method that I sometimes use is I get them to either sharpen or flatten the top note. And for example, if you sharpen the top note of this, B to A sharp, well, that's a major seventh. It exists in B minor, it exists in B major. And, you know, sometimes it's just, I find that students who are quick at this kind of thing, this can save them all of the painstaking working out of inverting and re-inverting. But I have to say, I think students need to know both of those techniques. But you might want to try out the second technique of just sort of shifting things up or down a semitone and then sort of trying to trigger their knowledge of intervals. All right, let's move forward on to lesson. Oh, that's right, we've got another quiz question now. So Leah has another quiz question that we've put together. And we would like you to fill this out. Okay, name the interval on the screen. I have this feeling I may have already given this one away, but yeah, hopefully some of you won't remember what I just said, but yeah, F to E flat, do your best. How are we going here? Have most people put in their answers? I'll give you 5 more seconds. Oh, brilliant. So 95% of people said it's a minor seventh, and indeed it is a minor seventh, which I spoke about just before. So well done, everybody, well done. All right. We can now move on to lesson 5, which is the lesson on modulation. So there we go. I would say that modulation is a fairly straightforward chapter in grade 4 theory. Of course, it builds, there's a wider selection of keys, scales and keys that can be used here. But what students need to do for grade 4 is they need to know the modulation to the dominant key or to the relative key. And usually what we're looking for is the leading note in the new key. So for example, if we're in C major and we're looking for a modulation to the dominant, we would be looking for an F sharp, right? F sharp is the leading note in G major. So we say that the dominant, a modulation to the dominant, you're looking for a sharpened fourth, as in a sharpened fourth in the original key. And that's also the same in minor keys. If we're in a major key and we're going to the relative minor, well, let's just go to C major. If we have C major, we want to be going to A minor, which is the relative minor. The leading note in A minor is G sharp. So in the original key, in C major, we're looking for a sharpened fifth. That's the G sharp. So in a minor key going to the relative major, what we have here is we're looking for a flattened seventh. That is the flattened seventh in the original key. And I've got an example here in the middle of the page. I don't know if you can all see it. This is a melody in F sharp minor. And what we're looking for is a modulation to A major. Now, if you go into the second line, I said before, what we're looking for is a sharpened leading note. So automatically you think, okay, I'm looking for a sharp. But in this case, we're not looking for a sharp. We're looking for a natural. But because of the key signature of F sharp minor, that's not in the key signature. So what we're looking for is an E natural, but it won't be spelled as an E natural in this case. It'll just be E. So this is an example of a modulation where it doesn't look like anything's been altered, but it has. If you go back to the original key, we're looking for an E sharp. The E sharp has disappeared. We've just got an E natural there, which is not required to be a natural because it's not in the key signature. So I hope people understand that. Also, I give examples that show that modulations can, a melody can have two modulations. Also, it might not end in the tonic key. It might end in one of the keys of the modulation. So sometimes I think students expect the melody to go right back to the tonic, but it might not always do that. So just, again, encourage your students just to look really carefully at what's going on. I know that we get used to looking for established patterns, you know, like, oh yeah, the second line's going to have one modulation, the third line's going to have another, but it often doesn't work out like that. And in the questions, I've put in examples where things go slightly against the grain. And I hope that teachers will appreciate that. All right, I think we've got, it's another quiz question time, Leah. All right, so here is a melody containing a modulation. And what we're looking for is the key to which the melody modulates. All right, so off you go. I think it's pretty clear from the word go that this starts in a minor key. I think we might have a sharpened leading note in the first bar. And then what happens? What happens after that? Okay, you've got 5 more seconds. Okay, and stop. Okay, Leah. Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, most people have said D major, and that's actually correct because the melody ends in D major, but some of you might not have realized, or some may have realized that this is the same as the pattern that I mentioned before, where there's not an explicitly sharpened leading note there. It's just there because it's already in the key signature. So again, well done, everybody. I'm really I'm loving this interactivity. All right, lesson 6. Let's move on. So lesson 6, we might need to just pick up the pace a little bit here. So the major thing in this lesson, which is about time and rhythm, is the concept of syncopation. So you'll see that I've started off with an example straight away that comes from a fairly well-known piece of classical music that starts off with this really bold syncopation across 4 bars and with these sort of plunging intervals at the same time. So this it's from, it's the opening of Mozart's Symphony number 25. So I talk about syncopation, the different kinds of syncopation that you'll find at this level, things like ties across the bar line, accents on weak beats, this kind of thing. There's plenty of examples in there. I also introduce hemiola. Hemiola is something that will come in later on in the Baroque dances, particularly when we're talking about the courant, the French courant, where at the ends of phrases, you'll have these little divisions of, you'll have 3 groups of 2 rather than 2 groups of 3. It's a very characteristic thing in Baroque music. And I've put lots of examples of that in the book as well. 6/4 time and 12/8 time, if we go on to the next screenshot. These are the new time signatures for the grade. And 6/4 time, I like to encourage my students that 6/4 time behaves very much like 6/8 time. It's compound tuple time, and perhaps they should think of 6/4 time as being like 6/8 time doubled. Now, filling out rests in 6/4 bars and 12/8 bars is actually quite an important thing in this level of theory, and it all comes down to the stronger and the weaker beats in the bar, and what you can group together and what you can't group together. And what I mean grouping together, I mean joining rests together. So if you have a look at the example I've put in at the top of the page, so it's 6/4 time. Obviously, we need 2 crotchets worth of rests in there, but according to this little system of joining rests together that we've developed from the last couple of grades, you can join rests together when it goes strong to weak or medium to weak, but weak to weak, weak to strong, or weak to medium, you can't join those together. You have to separate them out. So the correct answer is, as you'll see sort of down the past the middle of the page, it's 2 crotchet rests. If we had a minimum rest in there, the bar would look more like 3/2 time. So the 2 crotchet rests keeps the beat structure in the bar very clear, because 6/4 time, you want dotted minimum, dotted minimum. And if we go down below to 12/8 time, you'll see strong, weak, medium, weak. So if we go on to the next screenshot, yep, we have to complete the following bar with rests. According to the little scheme that we've worked out there, this is how we do it. We complete the second beat with 2 quaver rests, and then we can join those 2 rests together because it's medium to weak as a dotted minimum rest. So that's how we would do it. And just one more example from this chapter, and this is an exception that I think people need to be aware of. In 9/8 time, if you have a look at this bar, just on the very bottom of the page, so it's blank up to the 3 quavers at the end of the bar. So we need to complete the first part of the bar. If we go to the next screenshot, yeah. According to our little scheme, we can do this by joining together the first and the second beat, strong to weak. We've got a dotted minimum rest there. But it's also common to see the rest in 9/8 time like this as well, with the 2 dotted crotchet rests. And it's just a visual thing. If you look at a 9/8 bar, you want to see 1, 2, 3, and splitting out those dotted crotchet rests the way I have there enables that. But both of these are actually correct. If you could write both of these in an exam and you would be marked correct both times. All right, so now let's hit the really fun stuff. Oh, sorry, Leah, I've done it again. We've got another quiz question here. All right, so I'll have to explain this one. We want you to complete the following bar with rests, but what we're going to need you to do is we're going to need you to type your answer into the chat. So whatever you think it should be, quaver rest, crotchet rest, etc., 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 just type it into the chat and we're going to have a look at your answers. So we're completing this bar with rests. Just give us what you think the correct answer should be. And I know we've got to leave you a bit of time to actually type all this out, I think. So off you go. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, I think I would say that, again, think about completing beats as you go, and just remember about strong and weak beats and what you should be joining together and what you shouldn't be joining together. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm seeing it's a frenzy in the chat at the moment. Everybody's busily typing in their answers. I absolutely love it. Oh, I'm seeing some correct answers. This is great. This is great. All right, Leah. So let's just move along. What is the magic correct answer? If you can move us, there we go. It's quaver rest, crotchet rest, dotted minimum rest. And what I'm seeing is that most people have got that in, and you're all doing extremely well. Yeah. So if you look at this, knowing what you know about 6/4 time, dotted crotchet, sorry, dotted minim. There it is. This looks very clear. Well done, everybody. This is great. Fantastic. We've got some more interactive stuff later on. In fact, we've got quite a bit more. So let's keep moving on. Thanks, folks. Okay, lesson 7, 4-part writing. Okay, so I don't want to fry everybody's synapses, so I think I'll keep it sort of as brief as I can for 4-part writing. The first chapter talks about well, as you can see, the first bold. What I get a lot of students who use the wrong chords in their harmonies. And if you look at the syllabus explicitly says in major keys for grade 4, you can use 2 and you can use 2B. However, you cannot use these chords in a minor key. And I often get harmonies that come to me and students have written in chord 2 in a minor key. And I'm just thinking, what are you doing? The syllabus says not to use it. And likewise also chord 7B. And I think I can blame Dulcie Holland for this, because in her book, she talks about chord 7B. I think she says it's a very useful chord to use when writing harmonies. And I will tell you, it is indeed a very useful chord, but it's not in the grade 4 syllabus. So you shouldn't necessarily be using that chord, 7B. It's not in the syllabus. And if you don't know how to use it properly, you're gonna lose marks, definitely. If you do use it properly, you will probably get good marks. I think the examiner will look at it and go, they've done this right, the result is musical, I'm gonna give them a good mark. But if you risk it and write chord 7B in either a major or a minor harmony, and you mess it up, it's a surefire way to lose marks. So I reckon be safe rather than sorry. I also talk, look, I have to say the concept of doubling becomes very heated when you're talking about 4-part writing. I was always taught that in root position chords, you double the tonic for preference, that it is the most stable note to double in a root position chord. I would say that, how do I say this? If you're going to double other notes, we need to see a reason why you've chosen to double that note. If you've doubled the 5th, we need to see why you've made that choice. So I would say, again, better to be safe than sorry. Try to double the tonic if you can. In first inversion chords, you want to double the 3rd above the bass note or the 6th above the bass note, but you don't want to double the bass note because you'll end up with the evil doubled 3rd, which is another thing to be avoided as well. Unless you're writing chord 6, and chord 6 requires a doubled 3rd in grade 4 theory, because the 3rd in chord 6 is in fact the tonic. And so when you're doubling the tonic, that actually strengthens the effect of the chord. And so I've talked a bit about this, and I've also gone into some detail about common errors that you see in 4-part writing in this chapter. And there are some exercises where I get you to do that. And in fact, there will be some of those coming later on in the interactivity. So stay tuned. But let's move forward at this point. So lesson 8 is on the 4 principal cadences. Now, up to this point, we've learnt plagal cadences and perfect cadences. We now need to add imperfect cadences and interrupted cadences. Imperfect cadences are 1 to 5, 2 to 5, 4 to 5, and 6 to 5. And they all have their own system of voice leading, characteristic voice leading, things that you would expect to see. But in the book, I've actually put in a couple of examples where the voice leading isn't quite what you would expect. Maybe the soprano line does different things to what it should, and you have to come up with solutions. And so I talk through things like that, where you might need to say triple the root or some such sort of thing. So I've got some exceptions in there. If we go on to the next one, which is the interrupted cadence, some people say to me, why do you still say interrupted cadence? Why can't you call it a deceptive cadence like the rest of the world? And I would just say, look, you can call it an interrupted cadence. You could call it a deceptive cadence. Most people know what these are. So it's 5 to 6, 5 to 6. And, you know, we call it interrupted or deceptive because when we hit chord 5, we want to go to chord 1. We want the tonic to come in and for the phrase or the piece to finish. But instead, chord 6 comes in and throws a spanner in the works. Chord 6, I will say one of the other reasons we double the third in chord 6 is because if you look in the middle of the page here, one voice will always lead very elegantly up to the doubled third, and another voice will come down on it by step. And that's another excellent reason to double the third in chord 6. And I think that's all I need to say about the interrupted cadence. Let's move on. Okay, so lesson 9. Oh, Leah, I've done it again. I owe you cake or something. Question for, okay, so we've actually got some interactive things here. So these are cadences that have faults in them. If you look at this one that's on the screen right now, this is a plagal cadence in E minor. What is the error in the part writing? And have a look at this carefully. It's a plagal cadence in E minor, chord 4 to chord 1. And maybe I need to give you a clue about the outside voices, maybe? Is that helpful? What have we got here? Just looking at the chat and yes. Some people have found them. Some people have, oh, I've said them, so I've given something away. Yeah, let's have a look. Okay, just keep things moving now. What we've got in this one is we've got hidden octaves. And I'm pleased to say that most of you picked that up. About 70% of you picked up that they have hidden octaves. I'll just briefly explain. If we're talking about the outside parts, that's the soprano and the bass parts, they both need to move towards the same note, and you can see that they do. The soprano moves towards the E, the bass moves towards the E, the bass comes up a fifth to the E, the soprano comes up a third to the E. Both of them have gone to the E in the same direction, and they've outlined that octave. So that's why we call it a hidden octave. It's not a consecutive octave, it's a hidden octave, because of the movement outlining the exposed octave, as we sometimes call it, between the outside parts. So it's a hidden octave. I did explain that a little bit in the grade 3 book, but I've explained it further in the grade 4 book. All right, Leah, so I think we can probably go on to the next one. Right, here's another cadence. This one's in G major. Can you tell me what the error in the part writing is in this one? And I think some of you might pick this one up fairly quickly. Again, it's to do with the outside voices, just giving people a clue. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, some of you have got this. Some of you have got this. You might look at this. You might look at this and think it's okay, but it's not okay. If we just, yeah, it's all to do with the outside voices. Yeah, let's move this along then. So let's see what you've all said. Oh, brilliant. Yes, you're all brilliant. Most of you have said consecutive fifths, and you're absolutely right. And this is to do with the outside voices. You'll see the bass voice and the soprano voice, you've got a D and an A, and they go out to a G and a D. And that's the interval between the bass and the soprano is a fifth in the first chord, and it is also a fifth in the second chord. I will mention, however, that these are consecutive fifths in contrary motion. So they haven't gone in the same direction. They've actually gone out in the opposite direction, but we still call them consecutive fifths. I will also add that in some textbooks, they call these hidden fifths, but not in AMEB land. We're going to call these consecutive fifths. All right, next one. These are two chords in the key of F major. Two chords. What is the error in the progression between these two chords? What is the error between these two chords? So the first chord you'll note is the first inversion chord. It is chord 2B, and then the second chord is chord 1. It's 2B to 1. I'm really making you think this afternoon. I'm really making you think. What have we got here? Some of you are sort of on the right track. Some of you are sort of on the right track. Again, I'll say, consider the outside voices. I'm trying to be kind, but I'm also, trying to make you think. The outside voices. What are the outside voices doing? And of course, when I say outside voices, I mean soprano and bass. Now, this is not a cadence. This is not a cadence. It's actually just a progression of one chord to the next. One chord to the next. This is as you would find in a normal harmonization. All right, I think we better wrap this one up, Leah. So what have you all said? Let's have a look. Oh, boom, everybody's got it. Well, pretty much everybody's got it. Most of you have said that they are hidden fifths, and you know what? You are absolutely right. Again, look at the bass. The bass moves B flat to F, soprano moves G to C. So what we've got an exposed or a hidden fifth. Both of these voices are moving to an exposed fifth, and it's a hidden fifth. The interval that the bass moves, it goes up a fifth from B flat to F, and the soprano goes up a fourth. G to C. So they're not consecutive fifths, they are hidden fifths. Well done, everybody. You've obviously really done your swatting for this one. And I think we've got one more question. Oh, we don't. I thought I might have had a little question in there about something else, but maybe we'll just move along. Okay, chapter 9. Chapter 9 is one of the biggies. And this is longer passages of harmony. And I thought that what I would do is I would lay out my process for harmonizing melodies. So the first example here, you'll see it's a 6-bar melody in G major. And I think students who are looking at this sort of thing for the first time, it's a big jump. And I think teachers will agree with me. It's a big jump from grade 3 to grade 4 in theory. And so we're actually expecting quite a lot here. But you have all the resources to do this question and to do it well, I would say. So you look at this and you analyze it. So there are 3 phrase marks. The end of each phrase is going to indicate a cadence. You therefore have to work out what kind of cadence it's going to be. And I usually start at the end. So you'll see in the next sort of in the middle system, the last cadence, you've got an A in the top line going to a G. That would probably indicate a perfect cadence, 5-1. So we put that in. And then in the bottom system, you'll see, let's go to the next cadence at the end of the middle phrase. This looks like an interrupted cadence. You sort of go through a process of elimination based on the top note and top notes and what you can allow. And then the first phrase, if you look at the first phrase, and we'll have to go on to the next screenshot for this. Lesson 9 continued. Yep, we've got it. So the cadence at the end of the first phrase, just working it out according to the notes we're given, it's going to be an imperfect cadence. And it's likely that in a question like this, where you have 2, 3, or 4 phrases, You will have a perfect or a plagal cadence at the very end. You may have a plagal cadence before that, but not a perfect cadence, I would say. But we sort of try to put in examples where you're using an example of all of the principal cadences, or, you know, as many as we can fit in. So we've got, for example, in this one, we've got an imperfect cadence, we've got an interrupted cadence, and we've got a perfect cadence. And so that's basically set you all up. And then grade 4, we need to talk about approach chords. Approach chords are the chords that you use to lead into the cadence. And how do I say this? A lot of textbooks say you must use a first inversion chord. You don't have to use a first inversion chord. In fact, it's common to see approach chords that are root position chords, but there are ones that sound better than others, and you need to know what they are. And so if we go down to the second system in this example here on this page, I've used chord 2 as an approach chord because 2-5-1 is actually an excellent system of chords to use to finish a harmony. And if you go to the first one, I've used chord 1B, which leads by step very nicely into the first cadence. So I've moved by step in that instance. But I've used another example in the middle where I've leapt onto the cadence from the approach chord. And I just wanted to show examples that all of these are fine. It doesn't have to be a first inversion chord. It can be other things. I would say to start off with, try out a first inversion chord. And then you might like to try other chords. But you know, when you're writing harmonies, I think it's really important to listen to them, to hear them somehow, whether you're using some kind of software like Sibelius or Finale or something, or if you just go and play them on a keyboard, listen to them and listen to the effect of these chords and get to know them and make friends with them. All right, I'm going to move forward now. Lesson 9 continued. Right, and then the strategy is then to start to fill out all of the phrases one after the other. So this is going back to the first phrase. Look at it, and then you'll see that I've got two pairs of thirds there. It's very common to use 2 positions of the same chord to harmonize thirds. I mean, you don't have to do that, but it's very common to see that sort of thing. And then let's do the second phrase. You can see that I've tried to keep the bass line smooth and melodic as we go. And then on the bottom system there, yeah, I think you can get a sense of how the bass line now works as a whole melody. And this is what I'm trying to encourage students to do, to not see the bass line as just being plop, 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 but as a whole long line itself, a beautiful melodic line, just as melodic as the soprano line, but with a few more fifths and octaves, I would say. But there you go. Now I'm realizing that I've actually spoken a lot already, so I'm not going to spend a lot more time on this. But I just wanted to draw your attention. If we go forward to the next one, the next screen cap. Yep. So I now fill out the full harmonies, and I talk about what you can double and what you shouldn't double and how to avoid consecutives. These are sort of like the comments that I've put there after each one. But let's go actually through to the full harmonization in the next screen cap. Yep. And I'll just get you to look at this. You'll see that all 4 lines are nice and smooth and melodic. Everything, like I haven't introduced leaps into the inner parts where they don't need to be there, but I will draw your attention to chord 2 that I've used in the second phrase. This is chord 1, 2, 3 in bar 3. Do you notice anything unusual about this one? Now we are in the key of G major. So chord 2, I told you about 15 minutes ago that you should not double the third. Well, what have I done here? I've doubled the third. And I talk about why I did that, how it's a voice leading consideration to do with the tenor part. Can you see the tenor part? The tenor part sort of goes D, D, C, B, A, G. It's a scale passage coming down, and I made that change because it keeps the tenor line smooth. So I've used the voice leading to justify doubling the third in that chord. And if you want to read more about it, it's in the book. Let's move on. Okay, so lesson 10, melody. Oh, okay, we've got a quiz here. Yes, another one. I owe you even more cake, Leah. Right, so what we've got here is a little passage of melody. And what I want you to do is I want you to tell me what is wrong in this melody. What is specific? What is the worst of the wrongs in this melody? I'm wondering if I can give you any clues, or if you might just be clever enough to spot it yourselves. So we're talking about a particular note of the scale, and what it should do. I think I may have given it away, but hopefully I haven't given it away. What is the bad thing in this melody? Let's have a look at what you've said. Oh, perfect. You're all onto it. Yep. 85% of you said it's the unresolved leading note in bar 3, and you are absolutely correct. The leading note, the F sharp, should resolve upwards, either directly or indirectly, to the tonic, to the G. And what you end up with here is, if we continue on, you've got F sharp, D, C. We've got what we call an exposed tritone, and tritones are naughty in melody writing. So always remember to resolve your leading notes in your melodies. Okay, so let me whiz you through melody writing in lesson 10. All right, so grade 4 level, you get a rhyming couplet, or just a normal couplet that doesn't rhyme, and you have to write a rhythm to that, which you then transform into a melody, and you have to put the phrasing in, and you have to put the text in underneath. So let me just quickly talk you through this. So what we've got here is a little passage of text by Robert Louis Stevenson. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Okay. When I was teaching this to my students, I would then get them to read it aloud and exaggerate all of the stresses. And most of the time, the students could get it straight away. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. The accents come out nicely. But I would always get my students to do it in 3s and also do it in 2s, and then make them decide which is the one that they think is the most natural for the text. So here is a child who clambers and scrambles. This moves along really nicely in 3s. You could do it in 2, but I'd say it works better in 3s. The next strategy I suggest is to write down a basic rhythm that accommodates it. So you'll see, here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Okay, a basic rhythm. Then what we need to do is to use the resources of grade 4 to enliven the rhythm, to make it reflect the text even more. All right, so you'll see on the next one that, yeah, here we go. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. So we've just used the rhythmic resources of the grade to enliven it, to bring out the text accents, and just color it up a bit more. And you'll see that on the word scrambles, I've gone scrambles. Now that is a syncopation, but it actually reflects the text better than scrambles. Do you agree with me? Okay, and then turning this into a melody, there are all kinds of strategies that you can adopt, and I work through some strategies that I've developed myself, that you might want to do it as chords, as in each bar represents a discrete harmony. You need to work out where the climax is. You need to begin and end in the tonic. You should maybe end the first phrase on the dominant, all these kinds of things. And again, I'll just refer you to the book to see the level of detail that I've put in there. And I've done I think 2 or 3 melodies and just literally, couplets, and I pulled them apart in great detail. And I hope that teachers will appreciate that level of detail, and that maybe they can use it with their students. So let's keep pushing on. Lesson 11, transposition chapter. Now, I think I've already mentioned this. Grade 4 theory, transposition really follows on from grade 3. It's no great shakes. It's just that there will be accidentals in the original melody. There'll be little passages of chromatic writing, as you can see in this first example here, that we'll need to be really careful of when we're transposing. So if you look at the bottom of the page, you know, F sharp will transpose as C double sharp. B natural will transpose as F double sharp. So here is where students might expect to see double sharps and double flats, and also wide intervals to throw them off, you know, to make sure that they're transposing in the correct octave. So I think that chapter doesn't really require all that much talking about. So let's move on to lesson 12. Okay, the dances in the Baroque suite. Okay, so if you just look at this page, you'll see that what I've done is I wanted to give context to all these dances in the Baroque suite. And so I've gone back and just put in a little bit of potted music history, talking about how we get to this point. Why are there dances, and what is a Baroque suite? And so I talk about this, but one thing that's always frustrated me about the dances in the Baroque suite is that suddenly in grade 4 theory, you have to understand what counterpoint is. You have to understand what imitation is. You have to understand what ornamentation is. And many of the texts that I've seen, I feel don't really go into enough detail about what all of this is. And again, I expect that students who are doing grade 4 theory have probably played these things in their pieces already, and they probably already know, for example, what a mordant or a trill is, for example, but they don't know where these things have come from. So if we go on to the next screen, yeah, so here's just a little diagram of common ornaments in the Baroque suite and how they would be played. And of course, I know that teachers will know that some of these ornaments can be played differently. This is just a general suggestion. If we go on to the next screen cap, yeah, this is just a little example of imitation that you might want to go through your students with, just to show how composers in the Middle Ages started to use imitation from one voice to another. And then I talk about counterpoints as being a texture in music, and homophony also being a texture in music. And I may be bending some people's brains at this point in time, but again, I would refer you to the book for a fuller explanation of what these words mean. So let's go forward now. So what we've got now, the dances of the suite, I've put in an example of all of them. And just all of the features, So form, time, and character. And I will go through what we're expecting for character in a second. So I've done a lot of research, and I will tell you that as I was writing this, I did take home quite a lot of Bach and Handel and Purcell, and I went through all of these suites to get my answers. I figured that was the least that we owed you for grade 4 theory. So this is the fruits of my research. I've decided to include the corrente, and as of next year, 2022, we're going to be including the corrente as a separate dance. We won't be calling it an Italian courant. It'll be a corrente. Because if some of you may know the Bach partitas, for example, in the partitas, Bach writes a corrente instead of a courant more often than not. So I think it's an important dance, and it's one that needs looking at individually. We can go on to the next. Yep, so there's a little example of the corrente at the top there, very toccata-like figuration. And then there's a saraband, and let's move on. Let's move on. Yep, so a gavotte, minuet, jig, all good. Let's move on to the next one. Right, so a question relating to a particular dance. Okay, well, let's have a look at this one. Where in the suite is this dance usually? Well, actually, which dance of the suite is suggested by the following extract? I think most of you would pick out that this is a jig. Where is this? Where in the suite is this dance usually found? At the end. Does this extract feature imitation? Yes or no? Yes, it does. Is the use of imitation characteristic of this dance? It is very much so. Yes. What is the usual form of this dance? Binary form. What is the usual tempo for this dance? Fast or very fast, I would say. Now, time, when we say what is the time for this dance, obviously it's 6/8 time in this instance, but if we ask you to describe the time of a particular dance in general, for jig you would say compound time. That's what you would say. Character, okay, well for character, we're looking for things like, okay, anacrusis or no anacrusis? What kind of texture? Is there homophony? You know, all these kinds of things. So yeah, anything that's not form or time. You know, tempo is character, I would say. You could include that in terms of character. You know, for example, the saraband, you could say highly ornamented, accented on the second beats. These are aspects of character that we expect. Some students just, I think they learn these by rote and they just go, and they put all the information down for character. But no, we actually need specifics, and basically anything that's not form or time is character. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's move on. Stringed instruments. I thought it was necessary for students to look at a stringed instrument and know all the various parts of a stringed instrument. I think that, you know, sometimes with theory we can be a bit piano-centric. I thought it was high time that we supported all the string players out there and told the world about their instruments and all the features of their instruments and how they work. So I go through all of the usual things. The viola is going to read from the alto clef as well as the treble clef. The cello is going to read from the bass clef, the tenor clef, and the treble clef. So you'll need to know all of that. And then I put all the terms relating to the stringed instruments of the symphony orchestra in that chapter so that they sort of make a direct connection. And then lesson 14, terminology. Let's go forward. Yep, sorry, Leah, I've jumped ahead. So here they all are. What I would say is that if you're being asked to give us a term or a sign, make sure that you use our definitions. If you take things from the internet, it may not actually be what we're looking for. It may be wrong. So make sure that you memorize our particular explanations of these. I will just add in, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but tempo commodo, I corrected this. Up to this point, we had a double M in there. And I know Italian, and I know I've never seen C-O-M-M-O-D-O in Italian in any context. So I've corrected this back to single M, tempo commodo with a single M, because that's actually correct. So we will expect you to know that it's one M and not two M's. All right, so on to the next one, lesson 14, questions. So this is how I test all the signs and terms. I give you music, I ask you to look at the music and work things out from the music, all right? And then the appendix, if we move on to the next thing. Yep, there's the practice exam, an actual AMEB paper included with the grade 4 theory book. And I think that's about all from me right now. I think we're ready to head into some questions, and I might actually just bring back Fiona at this point.
Hello, Andrew, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. There are a couple of little questions, but to be honest, you've done an amazing job of answering most of the questions that we had before the webinar in your presentation. So
great.
Fantastic. Yes, a couple of little things.
Yes,
Somebody asked, can you use 1 to 4 at a cadence point if no other chords fit?
1 to 4.
Mm.
That's not a cadence that I'm aware of. But the thing is, though, the chords should fit. If it's grade 4 theory and we're looking for a cadence, it has to be one of the ones that we've said. So it has to be perfect or plagal, 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. Imperfect, anything going to 5, or interrupted, 5 going to 6. Excuse me. If it doesn't fit, maybe there's something about the notes that you've missed or something, and maybe what you might need to do is screenshot what you're looking at and send it in to us, and we can have a look at it for you. Maybe that's what we might need to do here.
Okay.
But I would say 1 to 4, no, that's not a cadence.
Great. Another question about the vocal range for vocal part writing. Why is the alto one note smaller than the others?
How do I answer this? Look, the way I always used to teach this is that they are basically identical in terms of range, except that the alto is 1 note shorter. I can't tell you. I just think I think it's a preference. Altos prefer to sing lower than higher. I think that's basically it. Most of the altos I know anyway, because it just requires less effort. And that may sound superficial, but that may actually be the correct answer.
Yeah, okay. Somebody's just written in and said, in melody writing, do you need separate tails for each word? I think I understand that question. Do you understand that one?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes if you look at printed music, particularly say recitative or certain printing houses, that what they do is they actually they put in a separate tail for each syllable. I would say that's not necessary. I think that you just beam them together as you would any other a normal melody. You don't need to put separate tails. I would just use the resources of the grade. It's going beyond just to put in the every separate tail. That would take you hours to fill out.
Fantastic. Well, I think that might be it. So I think you've covered nearly everything else that's been asked. So thank you so much, Andrew, for going through all of that with us all and for answering all those questions. I do have a few thank yous that I'd like to make before we finish up. Firstly, to our head of publishing, Stephen Hodgson, and our typesetter, David Howe, who helped create this book, our reviewers, Rita Cruz and Brett McKern, our proofreaders, Alex Garsden, Kay Gilmore and Christine Timoney, and thank you again, Rita, for your introduction. Also, thanks to the behind the scenes webinar team, Leah Phillips, who was there all day today, and Jeff Higgins as well, to AMEB CEO Bernard De Pasquale and the other AMEB staff, to our state office colleagues around the country, and of course to all of you, to everyone who attended this workshop today. We really appreciate your attendance. And last but not least, thank you, Andrew, again for this fantastic book and the course. I should mention the course is coming. It's being recorded at the moment, so the course will be out soon.
Indeed.
Thank you for talking through it with us all today. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your
Thanks so much, Fiona. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and just keep at it. Keep doing theory.
Yay for theory. Thanks everyone, and goodbye.
Thanks so much.